All right, Principal Jacko, we are live. Are you ready to kick this off?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
KTTV, giving you what you need. Motivation, education unleashed. H-Town representing, we forever keep it rolling. Join the conversation with inspirational stories. Thought-provoking, feel that energy. Kendrick Thomas aiming to lift the community. True indeed, tune in, come and see. Giving you what you need. KTTV, let's go. KTTV.
What to do, KTTV? This is KT, and I'm coming at you live with another episode of the Education Unleashed podcast. And on tonight's episode, I have the author, minister, school leader, Principal Aneesha Jacko. How you doing tonight, Principal Jacko?
What's going on? Yo, okay, H-Town?
Hey, look, you know we got to come hard now. That's how we do it down here. How you feeling tonight? What's been happening?
Man, it is almost May.
Yes.
We have literally 2 months, which is going to feel like a whole nother year. I could feel it.
Ooh-wee. Look, the days are getting longer. But you know, I told myself today, I say, look, commit. You guys gotta commit. So, you know, really it's no looking back. So yeah, let's roll this thing, man. I want to say thank you for taking some time out of the day. As we know, school leadership is not easy.
No.
And you come home tired. So I know it's 8:30 your time.
Yes.
Yeah, so thank you, because we don't play too hard on the school night now. So before we jump into the things, as we talked about, it's always good to do that wellness check. So how are you, and how are you finding that energy and that balance to push through to the end of the year?
Well, you know, one of the things that, you know, through my OSG family, been really thoughtful about blood pressure, you know, and making sure that we are eating and that I am taking the time to rest. I came home yesterday. I went right to sleep. I think my son tucked me in last night. I was so tired. I was like, I'm out. And so I have to rest. So I'm tired, but I'm excited. But I was tired. I'm tired.
Period. Yeah, I agree with that. You know, it's I'm at the alternative school, and so the work is a little different.
Oh yeah.
But at the end of the day, you say where are the kids that need me the most?
Right.
And so that's it. Just getting plugged in. We got some people checking in already. Who there's Cindy? She said, "Hey, Jacko."
Hey, Cindy.
All right. Then she say, "Go OSG." You know, I want to get into that a little later, but thinking about that call today,
yeah.
Man, that was awesome, Principal.
Well, you're talking about the meetup.
Yes.
Yeah. That's what it's about, though. See, now OSG began in 2020 during the pandemic. And so the coach, Dr. Dennis McKeesey, had a question. You know, schools were shutting down, but resources were still needed in our communities. And the one thing that didn't close, think about it, church closed, hospitals were open, but you couldn't go to see your loved ones.
Yeah.
Right? Mail stopped, Amazon, well, Instacart made a killing.
Yeah.
But schools were still open. Principals were still working. So who was checking on us? And so OSG was birthed through the work of Dr. Dennis McKeesey and Lazy Elliott. And they have been pioneers in this work, in really thinking about what it means to be a school leader, but also in your community. Yeah. We're community leaders.
Most definitely. And the good thing about that was today, you know, you think about a lot of the base being in New York, but then there were people from everywhere on that call. And when so many people come together for a collective good, you got some dangerous stuff going on in there.
For sure.
Yes, that's it.
And but so didn't we learn that? Didn't we learn that from the pandemic, though?
Yes, we did.
The world got smaller.
Very small. Very small. And so yeah, like I remember I was I switched, so I was doing like business, I was doing entrepreneurs, and so then I stopped and I just pivoted, and I said, okay, how can I use this platform to be able to help people, give them resources, and I started doing like a virtual thing, asking other school districts. I remember I went all the way from Texas to Alaska. Even a friend of mine
Wow.
jumped on from Dubai, and it was just like,
Okay.
what are you all doing for the pandemic?
Mm.
How are you all making it? And Houston Public Library saw one of my episodes with some people who were in Brownsville, which is closer to the border in Texas, and
Mm-hmm.
able to ship them books, ship them resources, and so
Wow.
like that was her testimonial. And so yeah, very small, because no way besides this platform would that have happened. You know.
Well, congratulations.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Now, before we jump any further, for the people that don't know Principal Jacko, now we got a lot of people that do. I will say that, but give us a little bit of your background and how that led you into education.
Wow. So I remember at an early age teaching Sunday school.
Hey,
I love kids. Uh, and even though I worked as a florist, I worked in Macy's retail. Um, in college, I went to Hampton University. I majored in psychology. And I thought I was going to become a doctor. But after 9/11, I had a position as a guidance counselor. And after 9/11, the world stopped in New York City. And we all had to reflect on what is it I'm here for. And so that led me to always want to teach kindergarten. And I began 23 years ago teaching kindergarten. And I have not turned back
mm,
from the classroom since.
wow, wow, wow. I just think about that when I come into places and I say, yeah, elementary. I was a kindergarten teacher. It's like, dude, are you serious? But yes, most definitely. And so 23 years ago,
Yeah, Jordan. This is my Jordan year.
and I was looking a lot of the work too with the PreK Centers.
Yes, I
Yeah.
opened. So I would say in 2015, I opened 8 PreK centers in New York City, downtown. I had 8 different sites. So in literally thinking about hiring, I had to hire 60 people in a month. So just think about how many interviews. But it makes sense, right? Because think about the hiring we do, you can tell from just someone's energy if they're
Mhm,
right.
mhm,
And out of 60, maybe 1 and 2 wasn't the right fit, but there's something about that opportunity in founding a school.
mhm.
It just gives you such pride.
Yeah, yeah, most definitely. Wow. I know we just opened up three, maybe 2 or 3 pre-K centers, maybe 2 pre-K centers that are nothing but pre-K in our district. So
Mhm.
um yeah, just jumping into it and being able to kind of see how that process went. Of course, a few new people, but then they're pulling principals. But just the setup of that pre-K center, I don't good job, Principal Jacko.
Well,
Uh,
listen, one of the things that you always find out about me is that playing is a human right.
yeah,
Like, and if you have the heart of a child and you play and you talk and listen, that's life. That's what that it we have to start there.
yeah.
Everything happens in pre-K and K.
Mm. Now, I know you talked about how 9/11, but thinking another way, down here in Texas, we were a little bit different than you all up north with the
Yes.
COVID-19.
Yeah.
So going forward, and I know we talked about that a little bit on the Zoom call, but how does how were you impacted? And even if we say it's over and we're moving forward, what kind of change for you for the long haul post COVID as a school leader?
Well, the onset of the pandemic, I was right in the heart of Manhattan. So, I had varied different families, some different economic statuses, right? And so when you think about when I think about when the pandemic hit, a lot of my families were used to boast about, oh, I'm going to France for the break. I'm going to Switzerland. But you know what happened? Once things started to happen, people were telling on each other, like, oh, yeah, you went to France? They better not be in school, Miss Jacko. Right? And so what I noticed is that we became trauma bound. It didn't matter how much money you had. It didn't matter what school you went to, right? We all were shut down.
Yeah.
And so there was a sense of humanity that was birthed, because it didn't matter what you look like. It didn't matter how much money, how many degrees, right? We all had to figure out Zoom. You're on mute. and we had to learn those difficult lessons, like turn your camera off.
Yes, yes.
Right? So what I learned from the pandemic is that it uncovered what a lot of us already knew about the inequities of schools. And so what was failing then is it was a light shined on the inequalities that are happening.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you want to talk about not reading? We wasn't reading before. You want to talk about teaching, right? We needed support with our teachers before. Now we all on the same page. We all became new teachers.
Yes.
Because we had to figure out whether it was Zoom or any other platform. Like I'm trying to think, the one where you take tests and you had to, all these different things. You just had to figure it out. What did you have? Different resources. Now, some schools had remote learning. I remember playing against schools from France with chess, right? So that technology divide, there's so many things that really stood out. So I would say, how did I handle it? I created a wellness team. And I'm happy to say that wellness team is still going on strong, because during the pandemic, I also took on a new position as a principal in elementary school. So just thinking about transitioning into leadership with a new staff was no easy feat.
No.
And so what we learned is that we had to be humble, and we had to take care of each other, and we had to take care of ourselves. Think about how many times we had to show up for others, and you had to be mindful. I'm doing this PD, but someone could be dying, or had someone in the house who died, or a family member who they cannot see. Think about that trauma.
Yeah.
So what I would say is it calibrated us to think about what is the main thing, right? Are our kids, do they have something to eat? Do they have emotional support? Do they have books in their home? Right? And so all of these things are happening while I believe we're trying to figure out, well, why am I here? What am I passionate about? What is going to be my legacy?
Most definitely. Most definitely. I remember, when everything kicked off and we doing the book deliveries, and so we're masked up and we got a full team working, and people are driving through, and here go your supplies, here you go. But that's once again showing up as we did for educators for other people. Did you all have a hybrid situation going on when y'all got back?
So when I got back, so that's when I started as a principal. And so it was hybrid. I had about 200 and some students in my school, and I had another half who were learning online. And so getting to know a new staff was interesting. But then thinking about what is the main thing that I want all students to walk away with. And what ended up happening, just like meeting, the miracle of like OSG and different people, we were able to connect the world. So like my school, we did self-portraits with Leroy Campbell, right? And we got to learn new techniques from experts. We got to connect arts and music and all the different people we never have access to.
Yeah.
And thinking about, even for me, a big proponent of my life change and the pivot, thinking about when I became a principal and I met OSG, what Dr. McKeesey and Lays Elliott, and I met Damon Dash, and he pushed me. He became our teacher and thought about the entrepreneurship. And so that's when, I had a prayer from Dr. Leo Cologne, who's a pastor. And in his prayer, he talked about having the audacity to speak.
Mm.
And so it inspired me to not be a fraudulent educator. We tell our kids to be readers and writers, and we don't read and write. So I had to spend time. He pushed me to write.
Yeah.
And that's when the birth of my book, Audacity to Speak, came about. And it all became about asking me, what do you dream about? And so I say to you, like, when do we dream? And he asked me, and I didn't have an answer.
Mm.
I was like, I don't dream. I just work.
Yeah. 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 We
So
talked
I
about
say
that.
that to say to you, my answer in the pandemic was answering a call.
Mm.
And I think so many of us have things stored inside of us, and we don't take the time to be archaeologists of our own history and our own legacy.
Man, that
So
was deep.
we got to go on a deep dive
Yeah.
inside.
Man, that was deep. That was deep. I mean, okay. Look like I gotta go back to the drawing board, Principal Jacko. I appreciate that. look like I got a few things to think about. But I'm glad you brought that up, because that was the next topic. Just getting into the book,
Yeah.
Audacity to Speak. And so you kind of talked to me about a lot of the reasons behind it. And so then that message, like you say, is just you wanted everybody to kind of take away that deep dive. Um, how, like, what was it? Was it a personal issue that made you say, you know what, I'm finally going to sit down and pen it? Because taking on that new school, doing everything you were doing, how did you find that time? How did you get into that groove?
Well, it's interesting that, I'm a woman of the cloth. I'm a licensed minister.
Yes.
But none of that came until I said yes to what I believe God has called me to do. And when I said yes to my calling as a minister, my life began to change. So I did that in 2019. I spoke to my pastor, Reverend Elaine Flake from Great Island Cathedral. And so I used to meet once a week at night to practice sermons. And don't you know, 2020, still on that journey, and then the world stopped.
Yeah.
But I had a dream prior that I was going to be healing people all around the world. Had no clue that 6 months later, when I accepted the call and I had a trial sermon, literally the next day I got a call to be a principal.
Mm.
But meeting the group and meeting Dame and Dr. McKeesey and Lays Elliott, right? I keep saying that because they pushed me to do something different.
Yeah.
And so what we know about the comfort zone, it's a beautiful place, but nothing grows there. And so it had to be those ugly tears and really difficult times that led me to just stop and just write.
Mm.
Right? Because I was having a difficult time, but through that through that those efforts, by me saying yes, my whole life changed, and it gave me such authority to go.
Mm.
Like, who are we waiting for? We are the ones we are waiting for. This is the time. Why are we waiting for someone else to do the work that we already been gifted to
Yeah.
do? And so I say that all to say, all this started by me saying yes and being obedient. It's not easy. Oh, I feel like it's harder.
Most definitely.
I would most rather be in hiding. But guess what? I grew up not being able to use my voice. And so even now as an adult, sometimes I find it difficult. I want to hide and not speak. But no one wins when that happens. And there's something that needs to be unearthed with someone else by just the power of your words. It could
Yeah.
either help you to soar or help you to suffer.
Yeah. Yeah. And in the book, I know you use the words declare and decree.
Yeah, that's it.
Right. And so then I know you dove into a little bit of that in the book. So just elaborate on I guess some of the outcomes that you've seen. I know you said once you said yes, but have you kind of been able to work the book and see that in other people as well?
Well, I think there's a fundamental part of my background in psychology that there's power in connection. And sometimes, and I'm working on this, I have not perfected it. But sometimes you wonder, like, why are people around me? Because they're irritated. Or I just don't vibe with them. But I've learned that your next level is dependent on how you treat the people right now. And by the grace of God, there goes you. And so I'm reformatting how I handle those that do things towards me. Because I'm like, okay, what's the lesson in this? There's something I need to learn from this. And there's someone I can help. Because it's like one of the things I used to play is like Zelda and Nintendo. Like each challenge takes you to another level.
Mm.
And so in the book, I talk about ego, humor, and highlight. That everyone should leave you with a gift. Like, encourage them. Highlight something. Because making these connections are critical because you don't know what people are going through.
Yeah.
And I don't think a lot of us were taught to communicate what it is we need. And then we get to ask and request. And I think that's where I'm working in that zone. I want to get better as a leader because I have to be a model for others.
Yes. Most definitely. Most definitely. Hold on, we got some check-ins again. So we got Coach Tanisha. She says hi. And then she says, beautiful. So I think she's talking about the words. Man, so powerful. I think about the book and the description. It said a powerful book that is anchored in spiritual, intellectual development, cultural phenomena of speaking and manifesting one greatness. And so when you think about those factors, how do you feel that they contribute to the ability to have the audacity to speak up, create a positive change?
I think Audacity to Speak talks about one, taking care of yourself because how you talk to yourself, it shows. And I think a lot of us speak life over ourselves. And so one of the things I remember um being at home and having COVID, and I had two boys. Well, I still have two boys. And they couldn't see me during Christmas. And I was just like, what if I'm not here anymore? Who are they going to live with? And am I going to be alive? And this was the time when I started thinking about one of the chapters the results are in. And one of the things I realized was that it was my faith that needed to be checked. And so, in thinking about the connection, that intersection of who you are and who you desire to be and the will, it all comes from being able to speak life and affirmations over yourself and finding the Miracle Morning Club with Brianna Greenspan and Hal Elrod. Just taking out a few minutes out of your day to have silence and affirmation, visualizing, reading and scribing. Exercise I'm working on. right? But you got to take time for you first. And that's one of the things that being in quarantine taught me, that I needed to take care of myself first.
Yeah, most definitely. Man, powerful. Once again, throughout that pandemic, I went and I was finding people who were just talking about self care,
Yeah.
talking about things for educators. And that was one of the pieces they said. I know it sounds so cliche, but the empty cup, like you
Yeah.
can't pour from an empty cup, and
Mhm.
it's so true. And so that's one thing we did find.
Yeah.
A lot of teachers, even now, I don't know if it's it seems like it's been a stigma post COVID for education. And so a lot of people got like a nasty taste. Is why we got this shortage, I would say.
Mhm. Mhm.
But it's a lot of people feel like they just weren't being taken care of. And so I think now we have to figure out how do we turn that voice and show that leaders are real people and that we do care about our staff, and we care about your personal career goals and things that way. Because man, if we don't let people know that we are leaders who believe in taking care of ourselves, I don't think we can get many people back.
Well, I think that goes twofold. I think
Mhm,
one of the things Dame used to say is, why would I want to follow my principal and doesn't, or he or she doesn't live better than me?
mhm,
Like,
mhm.
what are you aspiring to?
Yeah,
And so one of the things is, it's okay to be swaggy. It's okay to look good. It's okay to like music. Live your authentic life.
yeah,
And I think one of the things I was able to bring the miracle morning to my schools, because I was doing it. It was a practice that I was following. So I can only speak from what I know.
mhm,
And I think the more that we live our life and we make decisions that are aligned, we make choices that are aligned to our values,
yes.
I think that's when we have spaces and places that not only serve ourselves, but others and the children who are watching us.
Yeah, most definitely. Let's see here. We got Cindy. She say you're doing the work, and it shows.
Mm.
Ask Dr. Riley. Thanks for reminding us the importance of dreaming. Thanks for reminding us the importance of taking care of ourselves. Amen. Nicole Dorsey, what's in your cup is for you. Pour from your overflow. Amen. All right. And lastly, thanks for reminding us that leaders are people who need to stop and take care of themselves. Look, you said a mouthful though. You say if my leader is not doing better, why am I following this person?
But that's the thing, just right there, that's community.
Yeah.
Because, watching Dr. Riley, she has a show, Ask Dr. Riley. And watching that trajectory and that change and the impact, and being able to go to a studio in LA and watch her film, right? Watching, I was about to say Dr. Dorsey. That's coming. But watching her growth with the wellness committee and receiving a lifetime achievement award from Dr. Biden. I said doctor. I'm giving everyone doctors. From the president, and even watching Cindy as a coach, and as a leader in her school, and thinking about all the community efforts. She received, does a lot of work with the Lions Club in Brooklyn. I'm thinking about Jack and Jill and my partnership in Queens, even as a Delta, right? Like, who is within our community? How are we sharing resources? And I think that's the other thing we learned, is that you can't do this alone. You need a squad. You need a coach. You need a squad.
You're always doing a great job of segueing into that next spot. So when you think about that squad, we thinking
Mhm.
about the Off School Grounds Coalition. And
Yes.
so can you speak to the importance of creating strong partnerships like that coalition?
Yeah. So just thinking about being strategic. One, um, thinking about the different pillars of the organization. Think about financial fortitude. Thinking about health and wellness, leadership skills. All of these things, we're thinking about technology, right? I'm very passionate about literacy. But when you think about the community and leadership, it led me to go and get my doctorate because I want to learn how to be a better researcher. And it gives me the opportunity to go visit other schools. Let me learn from other school leaders. Well, what are you doing that's working? Because my goal is to have 100% readers in kindergarten. But so what are you doing at your school that I can learn from? And what it has been able to do is bring like-minded people together who are doing this hard work. This is not easy. And so sometimes you need some encouragement and say, listen, you can do it. You can do it. Keep going. And I think that's one of the things that OSG provides is a platform, but also community.
Yeah. And now, have you been able to do any work with them inside of your school
Oh,
so far? Yes.
yeah, absolutely. I mean,
Mhm.
if the moment you walk into my building, you can see this understanding of transformational uh, community partnerships. And so we have revolutionary educator who is Amon Ra, who is taking the world off by storm with his cryptocurrency and really thinking about what does technology look like in the future. When you walk into the building, we focus on the love with the work of Akbar Cook and his work, how he has strategically, as a school leader, connected. He has his record deal for his kids. He has wash machines in his building. He has a Capital One bank in his building, right? And so he works with us with lights on. And you have to understand, we were feeding over 500 people a day in the pandemic. Understand, the school was closed, but we were giving out food.
Yeah.
Right. And so when I think about all the strategic partnerships, even thinking about Dame Dash and his wife Raquel, they wrote a book, Dusko Goes to Space. They were able to pre-read before the book was published to our third graders, and we saw such gains. Why? Because we're connecting students with authentic authors. So now they are inspired to be readers. So I would have never had a mural in my building if it wasn't for OSG, because I was able to visit Travis Brown, Dr. Travis Brown at Farris Academy and see all the amazing things that are happening in his school. And so even like going through a first OSG conference at Columbia, and I got to meet Dr. Chester, knowing what your flavor is, and Dr. Mark Jackson asking a question like, who are you? Have you ever been asked, like, someone asks you, who are you? Like, it's like, it's like, do you dream? I'm like, who am I? Like, I don't know. I need to figure that out. So I think that's a loaded question when you say OSG. Like, I was able to work with Senator Eddie Milton in Indiana, who's now running for mayor. I would have never made these connections if it hadn't been for OSG.
Talk about the work, then. Well, thank you for even just letting me get a little bit of that today. Man, it was
Well,
powerful.
you
Let's see.
joined. Well, you
Yeah.
listen. You joined today for the first time. What
Yes.
what did you how was that experience for you?
If you didn't get off that call, expired, and about the right things, right? Let's look at the
Yes.
numbers. Let's look at the data. Let's move the needle.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
just seeing so many people who were passionately, authentically themselves,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it got kind of crazy in there, but it was all again for the right thing, So
That's it.
yeah, I just felt motivated to and everybody's pretty much on the East Coast that way. So being down here in Texas,
Mm-hmm.
and just being able to say, okay, like you say, what can I get from these people who are doing the things that I want to do, and eventually me become a part of that community and do the same thing, to just grow and network.
Well, I mean, one of the things, and I see Captain Kirk is here, Jamila, she's in Atlanta. And one of the things that she's really pushed me to think about is living a balanced life,
Yeah.
right? And being a mom, being a wife, being a teacher, being a minister. Sometimes you need some of those quick texts and asking, how are you?
Yeah.
Right? But one of the things I love that you're in Texas, because now we got to figure out how we're going to visit each other.
Yes.
Zoom, like visiting for a conference. I think you have a conference that's coming up, right?
Yes. July 6th and 7th.
Right. So just thinking about what does that look like?
Yeah, being a part of it. Hold on, we got a few more check-ins. Dr. Riley, what you say? Commune. I like that. Commune plus unity. Thank you, Doc. All right. Look, Captain Kirk, great. Thank you. I appreciate it. Principal Jacko is doing her thing. All right. She says, OSG, find your tribe. Now this is it. It doesn't have to be lonely at the top. Yes, I think she said it's lonely at the top because you choose to be alone. Dr. Riley said that. That is true. That is very true. Then they gave a shout out to the book, Audacity to Speak. Right. Yeah. So what she said, today's meetup was everything.
Yes,
I
it
agree.
was.
I agree. Hold up. Wait a minute. I see you. Come on, Captain Kirk. Oh man, so awesome. So now as we think about we talked a little earlier about hiring teachers. We know that the hiring season is upon us.
Yes.
And so as we are school leaders, I always like to give those
Tips.
tidbits for I think about going through the principal process and getting ready. There were so many of my cohorts and my admin friends who said, man, as I was preparing for this interview, I went back and they was listening to like Dr. Snow as he talks about culture, or listen to the leaders in my building. And so I just wanted to kind of touch on that for a little bit. And so what advice would you give to educators who are looking to land that job in the education field?
Ooh. I'm going to say never hire someone without calling the last supervisor. Don't do it. I don't care if it's a hookup and you know the person. They know when it comes to supervision. And this is one of the things Principal Amon Ra said to me for teachers. Your opinion of me is your opinion, but my opinion of you is your evaluation.
Hey.
Okay? And so I'm not going to say don't hire your friends, but do due diligence and research, because the last thing you want is somebody who's not a good fit, but then also has it's just not a right fit. And I'll say that. Do your due diligence, work with HR. There are no shortcuts when it comes to hire. You must go through the background check. You must go through all of the hoops and hazards, because who you put in front of kids matters too. My favorite question is always, how will you like to contribute to the life of this school? So yes, you can have a background, but how do you foresee contributing? So this is not, there's something that has to be reciprocity, right? It's not you just come and you leave, right? It's what do you want to cultivate here? What will be your lasting footprints here, right? And so just starting out the gate is that opportunity, like that community. And the last question I would say, what's not on your resume that I should know? Because think about it, when you have your resume, you have to squeeze it into one page. And so if we were to role play, ask me that question so you can get an idea of what I'm thinking about. So you ask me, well, what's on your, I see your resume, but what's not on your resume?
Yes. Hold up. Principal Jacko.
Yeah.
I see your resume, but what is not on your resume?
That you should know? Well, thank you for asking, Superintendent. One thing you should know that's not on my resume, that in my 23 years, I've only been out 10 times. And those 10 times was when I had my son.
Wow.
So through my whole pregnancy, I always showed up. I made all my appointments at night. And so I never missed a day. And I had 2 boys, and I showed up for 100% attendance. And the only time I was out is when I gave birth.
Don't expect the ring.
Say again?
I say don't expect the ring if you're not committed to the hustle.
Well, but what did you learn? What's one thing you learned different, something about me that you wouldn't have known from looking at my resume?
Most definitely that you are dependable.
Mm-hmm. And that I show up.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. We got to unpack that a little bit. That's with pre-Ks. I guess, like you say, pre-Ks, you that immune system has grown up.
Oh yeah.
You pushing through, and so as you go through all those times, you think about creating those environments for our students of inclusiveness, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of positivity. Throughout your years, your tenure, moving kids, new schools, what are some of the strategies that you found to be most effective when creating those positive and inclusive environments at schools?
Well, one, you have to have an understanding of who your children are. Are they tactile? Are they visual? Are they auditory? How do they learn best? Because your materials need to match your students, but also your money has to match the policy. And that's what Coach by Fia always tells me, that your money, the bag has to match the policy. And so when you think about your standards of what you believe in, that's what your budget should match. If you believe in supporting your teachers, you have to match that. If you believe in building community, you have to create and have opportunities for people to do that. Having materials in your classroom that, you can't say you're going to teach math and you don't have manips. Yeah. We can't say we want students to be creative and you don't have choices. And so when we think about equity, it's not just about race and gender. It's also about materials. For writing, do you have different types of writing tools and paper? And so being really strategic around making sure that whatever the standards are, what does that look like in our classrooms, and making sure that we have the volume of resources that will match what it is we want students to do.
Yeah, I think about that pandemic, and when it hit, like you say, let that budget match your goals. And so,
yes,
luckily, we were fighting to be a one-to-one campus as much as we could, right? Mm-hmm. So the budget went for tech. We knew that people were using phones at home when we're sending home the RAS kids or all these other apps. And so that was one thing that we did, was being able to create that equity piece, right? And making sure that you have a fair exchange. And I think about when that time happened and everybody was at home, I felt so good having a school that was already ahead of the game. We were able to give out devices. We did have to get some help from the district, but it was way less than other schools because we believed in tech, and then that's where we showed that the money would be because we knew our community. Mm-hmm. So I agree totally with what you said. Yeah,
but then also, and think about that, you have high school, right? Yeah. And so, TikTok blew up.
Yeah.
Right? And so the how we're teaching also, right? And professional development, I created the art of teaching where it was all my remote teachers, right? And just having a session on how to use different resources. And so that's also important.
Yeah. Now I would say I just moved over to high school this year, but since 2013, all elementary.
Wow. Yes, that's a big jump.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, but I honestly got out. I was a football coach, track coach, and so then I had to figure out, okay, if I want to be an administrator, I have to go somewhere where coaching is not. And so that first year moving to elementary, it was hard. A few kids cried. They probably didn't have to. but that's where it was. And so that's why that was so important of being able to create that access, because like I said, I knew that they were on mom's phone, or when mom's gone, now do they even have access? So just awesomeness. Let's get a few check-ins real quick. Okay, she sent the heart to Cindy. Shout out to Captain Kirk and Cindy. Then she talked about the access. I agree, access is so important. And what she say, in some places, as Dr. Riley says, in some places, the digital divide became the digital gap. Most
Mm.
definitely, most definitely. So now, post pandemic, we're trying to get things back going. We know that literacy is such an important part of elementary. Um, whew, how close are you to working on that 100% in kinder? And what are some of the strategies that you're using to just get your teachers on board to get there for their buy-in?
I'm about around, I would say 50 to 60%.
Nice.
Whereas last year I was very like about 30%. And one of the things, well, a few things I contribute to that. One, wrapping teachers around with support and one-on-one. I actually had to jump in and do PD with kindergarten for 6 weeks myself. So I'm also modeling the way.
Yeah.
Instead of telling, I'm modeling. And so few things. We use Hegarty, foundations, into reading, uh, and then also doing some emergent storybook reading. The reading aloud is critical. Students need to hear the language. Also, one of the other things we're focusing on was writing, right? And giving students opportunity to write. And so the other thing I'll close out with kindergarten was doing the poetry. Sometimes students just don't know the nursery rhymes. And so making sure that students, as one of the things that I'm really passionate about is literacy. And as a literacy specialist, it's so critical that we are increasing the amount of words that students are using and are exposed to. So one of the things I would say is regular systems of time to read, independent reading is critical. And so having these critical times where we do data dives 3 times a year, and we're looking to see what is the data saying to us, and having those pacing calendars and being really clear about what happens at each next bar, and then going back and saying, well, how's it going and what do we need? So those are some of the things that we put in place in kindergarten to have 100% readers.
Mm. And Dr. Riley asks, how do you define 100% reading in kinder?
So what I define it as is level E. And so level E is when you're looking at the amount of words that students are using and they're able to use concepts of print. And so level E is be able to use those comprehension skills, asking some of those story elements. And so when you think about strand 3, that's part of our next generation learning standards. That is what I'm looking for as level E readers. So yes, concepts of print, where we're holding the book, turning the page, looking to see the words on the page, and looking at the pictures, the illustrations, knowing the author and the illustrator. So I think that's definitely a beginning of reading, but definitely going for level E
Yeah,
is our goal.
yeah. I think for us it's level 6.
Mm-hmm.
Just trying to
Mm-hmm.
get them to
Yep.
get there. Yeah. So no, I understand totally.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that answered your question, Dr. Rob. All right. So now I'm gonna put you on the spot as we get ready to close this thing. Thinking about this long, awesome career that is just getting started, what is one of the most impactful or memorable experiences you've had as an educator in New York City?
Mm. I've had so many. I think today, watching one of my students break down emotionally, and I just happened to be on her floor, and by just giving her a cool compress and a hug, and to me, it just was a reminder of we have to create healing spaces for our children. And that behavior is also communication. You know, but I remember Olivia Charles when I was a kindergarten teacher 20 years ago, and she was this joy. She left me in kindergarten reading a level J. And I got to go back to see her in 5th grade, and she was the valedictorian.
Yes.
And I was able to see her on the train. And I said, Olivia Charles, this is like 15 years later. And she was in medical school. And I knew she was something special.
Yeah.
And I think what's been memorable is that parents still see me and say, Miss Jacko, you told my kids they were going to college, and they're in college and they finished and now they're working, they got a job. So I think the memorable thing, I didn't answer your question because I just remixed it, but there's so many different students who I can call out their names and remember this is when something went on in you. Yeah. And to see it still happening. Parents today, I was in tears. I'm very emotional. And I was crying talking to a parent today. And I said, I want to help her, but she needs something more. And so working, the trust that I built with the family, we're going to figure out next steps for our child, right? But these are our children, and we get to create and provide opportunities for our students that are going to change generations. And that's what we get to do. Listen, school is traumatic for a lot of adults. Yes. We're still figuring it out. And so sometimes a lot of parents come to school because they've been hurt. And I get that too. That's what's in my book. So once they understand that you can come in my office and have a tangerine and talk and have some water, I've already shifted a whole generation of mistrust. Yes. And so starting now, this is what we get to do. We thrive at 35.
I say that tangerine. You just got a bowl of tangerines in there.
I have tangerines. You come in, and one of the kids, I said, you need a nana? You need a nana? Come on and get here and get a nana. Wow. And so, but think about it. You go to the principal to get substance, not to get kicked out. And so I've had in 3 years 0 suspensions.
Nice.
Okay. So speak to that.
Yes, that's powerful.
Yeah, say that.
Okay. I just want to get Dr. Riley's question. And I want to say level E, strong. Just you basically prepared for first grade, right? Going into first grade on level strongly.
Yep.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah. Yes. It's level 4 for kindergarten. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, and so the text features is when it's that interplay of sometimes when the illustration doesn't quite match the words. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. All right. And then she's Principal Captain Kirk said, say that. Hey. So now as we get ready to land this plane, Principal Jacko, what's next for you? What's next for the ministry? What's the next book? Give us some exclusives.
Oh wow, you said next book now. Like, let's G easy. Well, I am a candidate. I'm in school for my doctorate, and I'm working really diligently to think about the impact of principals' perceptions around collective efficacy in schools. So I will be looking to doing research around how do we build communities. In my ministry, I'm working in seminary. And so the goal is to become an ordained reverend in a deacon in the AME church. As far as a next book, I'm going to think about that. I have been working with Raquel Horn and Dame Dash with Applefish. And so you can go to Applefish Kids and you can hear my voice doing the alphabet. And you can learn sign language and just really some fun things. Because I believe when you start as early as babies that you can change the way the neurons make those connections and build schemas in their brain so that when it's time to read, they're ready. Yeah.
That's
So
what it's about.
I'm really passionate about early childhood. It's really the key to life.
Most definitely, and so that's what I say. I love high school, but like I said, I was looking to go elementary principal, because you simply want to be able to foster that love of reading, that journey that it takes you on, that skill set, so that way by the time it's reading to learn, we don't have any hiccups, because we know from
That's it.
second grade to third grade it shifts. Right. And so, yeah, most definitely. I agree with that. I was a high school English teacher. And so then I just transferred that down to elementary and been going ever since.
And that's the way to do it. I think some of my best work was when I was teaching SAT prep as a coach, a literacy coach, because I learned that if you learn those paragraphs in elementary school, you can ace the AP English exam. It's just that hamburger.
Yeah. Got to have a good foundation.
That's it.
That's it. Look, Dr. Riley said, people lie, numbers don't, most definitely. And Captain Kirk agrees. Next book. All right.
And these are all authors here. So
yeah,
they got some nerve, I tell you.
Well, I sure appreciate them for being in the building. Miss was that McKessie?
Oh, that's the boss lady.
Hey,
Miss Aneesha Jacko. Listen, what's next? Now that she's here, now I gotta tell the truth. I gotta get the financial side in order. So that's what she's the money lady.
Hey,
yes, we gotta make sure our money is in order.
Yeah. Hey, that goes back to what Dr. Riley said. People lie, but the numbers don't.
Yes.
Well, I sure appreciate you for coming on tonight. If people want to know more about the book, how can they find it? How can they find you? Can you give us some information?
Sorry. I am Principal Jacko on Instagram. You can follow me. I started answering some DMs. Also, you can go on Amazon, Audacity to Speak. I hit bestseller day 1. Hey. And so I'm really excited about that. So I would love to be part of a book tour. I'll come do some talking and speaking engagements, also coaching. It's been really exciting. The results are in based on my experience during the pandemic. So Principal Jacko on IG, and be happy to connect.
All right. Well, thank you again, Principal Jacko, for that time today. I really appreciated the conversation, the jewels, and I look forward to just getting this out and sharing it with the community and the people who need it the most.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you to everyone who joined.
Hey, I agree with that. All right. All right, y'all. This is KT for KTTV signing out. 100.
This is Darnell with Broadcast Houston.
This is Dr. Tamara Beckford.
Hey, this is Candace.
This is London Underwood.
This is Kirsten Bass with Inner City Greens, and you're watching.
Y'all are now tuned in to
KTTV.
KTTV.
KT.